Okay, welcome to a first of many sign designs. This is one of my clients down in Tucson, new place, and I was asked to come up with a preliminary idea of what the sign would look like and so forth. So, since I use Corel a lot, I decided to do a little how I go about doing my designs for signage and so forth. So here is basically the finished product, but we'll walk you through how I actually came up with this. So it's brushed aluminum. This will be halo and face lit. Uh, the lettering, all the fonts are all going to be pushed through, half inch or 1 inch. I'm sorry, white acrylic push through. This is all on a radius. This blue, it's like a cobalt or something in that range, and to look anodized. Shadows and everything helped to show that kind of a radius bend and so forth. Um, this will actually have black perf, so during the day it'll have that black look, but at nighttime it'll actually, with the holes in the perf, on the acrylic will actually shine through and make it look totally white. So that's a really cool trick in a sign trade. Um, Anyways, let's get started. So I actually imported in the logo that I received from the graphic designer that they used to design this logo. I had originally was coming with an idea for them, but it was a little bit more complex than they wanted, so they went with a little bit simpler. That's fine, that sometimes that's how it goes. They hire you to do one part or two parts, and you get one part, so you gotta be happy with that. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get a scale on this. This is the first thing we want to do. So I'm gonna actually write it out so that way I know where I'm at. Scale. Okay, and let's work with, yeah, 3/4 is fine. That's right where it was. Let's just look at it and see what it says here. 15 feet. And yeah, so we're working with a 3/4 inch scale. So let me put that on there. 3/4 of an inch equals 1 foot dash 0 inches. That way, if somebody else needs to work on this or work with a lot of architects, this will actually give them an idea of what the scale is here. Okay, so we'll go check and make sure we're on the 3/4 scale, which we are. If you know what that is, 1 equals 16. That's fine. Or just come down to 3/4. Same thing. Okay, I'm going to break these apart. I'm going to ungroup it. So they're totally different segments of this whole thing. These two can stay together, so I'll group this. Okay. And the first thing we're going to do is that we want this drawing right here, saying 15 feet, okay, by 9 and change, of course. Okay. So what I'm going to want to do is that I know that the radius box that this is going on needs to be about 8.5. So I'll put that on there and hit enter. And then we'll rescale this if it's too small and so forth, which is looking like it's going to be. So in that case, what we'll do is we'll just up the scale here from 3/4 to 1 1/2. Okay, that should give us, yep, that's not bad at all. So that's saying 7 something right there alone. With our box, a little bit over it. So let's go up here, 8.5. Perfect. Put that to the back. Okay, it's black, so let's just give it a color. Let's say blue for right now so at least you can see it. We want to center this all the way around, top and bottom, to the font. So we'll do that. Sometimes I like to cheat it a little bit myself. Okay, so we're going to put these as white right now. So we're going to color those white so we can see it as far as that goes. We're going to not screw with this right at this moment. Okay, so we know we not need to make this into a radius as far as that goes. So what I normally do is I create my own or bring in, which I think it's faster, is I already have a pre-made a metallic you want to call it a metallic template that I use all the time. It's faster than me sitting here trying to build one. So I'll import that real quick. So let's go import, and it's on my desktop, and it's under scrapbooks, which is all my scrapbook does, and it's called metallic. So ME and right here. Here it is. Import that in. Put that right there. That's the one I really like. I tend to use that a lot. It's easier for me to fix it and so forth. All right, now here's a cool part is that we want pretty much right where this brightest where this brightest spot is where that bend is going to start showing. So it kind of right now almost shows like a radius look because the shiniest spot would be the most pushed out if the light's hitting it. So and then the uh, part to the back would be where it actually hits the wall or wherever it's going to be placed. So this way it shows from dark to light, showing the radius. So this is not bad to start with, but we'll make it a little bit better here. I want to make this at least a little bit darker. So I'm going to go in there and use a little bit black here. Same with here. Use a black. Okay, that's a little bit too much because of the way it's pulled. Okay. Put some of this gray back over here. We need to add some gray here. So we're just going to add, oops, a little bit too dark. Okay, so that black is a little bit too black. So let's call it a darker gray. Maybe go up one, a little bit dark. There you go. And what we're going to do is we're going to put two things of white here. And the only reason is because it's a bigger piece of aluminum. So we don't want it just to be showing a little bit a thin piece on there. So we want to show as much as the radius as possible. Okay, so we'll get that part going, and then the next part I'll do on here is actually I will take the fonts and we'll show some kind of shadows as far as that goes. Okay, so me, I'm very detailed when it comes to signage. I think a lot of people in Corel or illustrators or anything in those type of programs really don't show enough detail to help the customer really understand it. Of course, then I do 3D models to make it even more, but I think detail is very important for getting this point across, especially for the salesperson that's trying to sell this. Of course, I'm the salesperson on this, so it makes it a little bit more detailed work that I have to do. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this. Okay, I'm going to just pull it down right there. I'm going to use the same black. I'm going to go to transparency, give it transparency, and I'm going to click it so it's at the behind my font. So now we can see it, because before, remember, the end was kind of gone because of the white shadow work. Now, here's a really unique thing. Some sign designers, well, majority sign designers or designers, they always use a black outline around their artwork. I do it 50% of the time, depending on what I'm trying to get across. If it's a really detailed drawing, sometimes you don't need it. Sometimes the contrast of the colors and so forth will separate it from the background or whatever else, of course. Okay, so for right now, I'm just going to leave it there. Okay. All right, so we've got this. So what it's supposed to represent is a push-through, 1-inch push-through acrylic pushing through this actual radius background. Okay, we can do it several different ways besides this. I'm going to actually use a tool which a lot of people do not use, is the extrude tool. I think that thing is, God, I love that tool. Okay, so that's way too much, of course. So we just put it on 1, hit enter. And I like to see a little bit of the shadows, even though I don't really like this tool for the shadow work. It's just, this is the part I don't care for. I wish Corel would fix that, is the gradient portion is so choppy. So I could physically go back and make that blend really nice. But for what I need it for right now is basically just to give me an idea of, it kind of gives you the shadow work for the radius and so forth. So I'm going to leave it the way it is right now. I'll fix that in a second here. So I'm happy with what I see right now. I could actually just do it without the, let's see here. There, I like that even better. Alright, so I'm going to do object break apart. And what I do is I'll leave that alone for now. And then the light is actually coming from this direction. So if that was the sun, let's just call it the sun. Let's put it over here. Let's call it yellow. Put my thing over here. Okay, if the sun was coming this way, this is pretty much what we're looking at. So the reflection is actually on these portion here, and the drop shadow, of course, is to the right. So the light's on the left, so that we're good there. Okay. Now all I'm going to do is take that apart, ungroup it, ungroup, and I'm going to weld it all together. Okay. So now I've got a nice systematic one look, which is that black right there for now. Okay. These actually going to be, since they're going to be push through and it's going to be white acrylic, it actually would not have a black background. It would have closer to a darker gray color with the shadowing and so forth. So we did that right there. So it looks good. I like that. I'm happy with that. Looks really good. Okay. We could do the shadows a couple different ways. We could either left it the way this is now, but since it's pushed through, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to use what I think and know is correct for something like this, which is back again using the extrude tool and giving it a little bit more of a shadow. Now, the only thing is that we don't want it to have a shadow that's going to a vanishing point. We want to have it so that the shadow is more controllable, and since it's going to the right, we want to have it a little bit drop to the right, and it's only an inch off the well, technically it's called an inch push through. It's not an inch actually showing on the face. It's more closer to 3/4 of an inch showing, so it's going to have a nice little edge to it, showing and so forth. So I want to guesstimate what it looks like, and a lot of this is trial and error. Many years of using and building signs in computer takes a lot of practice to understand what the shadows are going to look like, and so forth. So I'll ungroup that. I'm going to ungroup it again. I'm going to weld it. Okay. I'm going to name it that black color. I'm going to give it a translucency. So now it's going to be translucent, and I like that. Okay. That's perfect. We need to put that to the back. So there. So now that looks more realistic. That looks a lot better. Okay. So now we've got almost a three-dimensional looking letters that look like they're pushed through the actual background. Now here comes the fun part. Is from here on out it gets really creative, and as I say, this is where I do my best. I've designed a lot of well-known signs around the country. Used to be a Yesco designer, so I designed a lot of really unique signs, and of course went on my own designing, and I tend to do a lot of freelance design work for many sign companies and architects and so forth. So next thing we're going to do is that we need to make that look anodized. Now, anodized can be done as two different ways in my way of thinking. Actual anodizing, or you can faux anodizing, which would be actually taking spraying this metal aluminum panel with brushed aluminum, like a Matthews brushed aluminum metallic paint. It's a very fine metallic silver, and then actually using a blue translucent color to paint on top of it, and then that will build up with depending on how many coats you want it to, as far as how vibrant and the punch you want out of it to get the blue, how many coats you're going to put on it, so forth to get that look. Now, anodizing is expensive. Painting it would be the way to go. So we had priced it out for paint. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to call it blue, And as you can see, it looks flat now, right? Because we got rid of the metallic look and put in a opaque solid blue color. So in order to get it to look and wrap to that metallic radius, what I have to do is actually bring it in transparent. And here's where a lot of people don't use this at all. I live in this area. Love this stuff for sign design, especially if you're trying to do night shots and stuff like that. Different types of metal finishes and everything like that. So from here, we're going to use subtract. Okay. Now here's where I need to really look at my underlay of this. And what I normally do is I pull it halfway down, so that way I can still see how dark and how light, but still see the metallic aspect. Now, I can see that that's way too dark, so I need to take this, lighten it up, and see what it looks like there. But before I even go there, let's get to this blue. It's not, let's try that blue. No, it's too blue. So we can go through our colors here. I'm not really fussy with colors at this point. I just want a color that's going to work and probably get through it. So I know roughly where I need to be. So there, no. But here's the thing. If that's not working, let's try add. Add, no, not really. Okay. So what we're going to do really quickly, just because I'm going to put this right back on top. Let's put that right back on there. And I'm going to cheat really quick because I don't remember what color blue I used on this, and just for speed's sake, I'm going to take this real... Oh, I'm going to have to go inside. And I'm going to copy this real quick. Let's get out of there. And go back to where we were. I'm going to put this back here. And all I'm going to do is just cheat it, put that color right there. And then sometimes you got to remember, I do build a lot of signs throughout the day, so sometimes I do forget what color blue and so forth. And that's okay. The nice thing is that we've already built it, and we can always go back, and cheating's not a bad thing as long as it doesn't hurt anybody and doesn't offend anybody. And since this is all my stuff, I'm not too worried about it. So what we're going to do is, this blue, you know, is too dark. This blue is beautiful. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this, we're going to copy its lens fill, and look at that. Boom, right there. Looks good. Okay. Now, you see how dark that is there? You know how we changed the other one. So what we're going to do is go bring this down. We're going to play with both sides of this. We're not going to be that dark. Maybe this dark. And see, that looks a lot better. Same thing here. Okay, we've got nice. And put this back to the top. That looks beautiful. Now that looks like anodized metal. It's got a really nice, beautiful look to it as far as that goes. Now, I do all my detail stuff at the end as far as the highlights and the beauty stuff as far as that goes. So for right now, we're good with this. This looks like it's bent the way it's supposed to be. I could tighten up a little bit this white in this area. I can tighten that up a little bit. Give it a little bit more. I can get rid of it's not so much gray. Pull this back up to the top, and let's take a look at it. Let's go back. Nice thing that I like, you can go back. So let's go back and see what it looks like. Okay. Not bad at all. Not bad. Okay. So that guy gives our radius as far as that goes. Now, I'm a strong believer in doing shadows as I move on, just to go along, so that way I don't feel like I'm lost when I'm doing stuff here. Huh, I did not include this on. That's really weird. Let me take this, can copy, delete it, and add it on here. Okay, so we're still in the scale that we remember we changed the scale, so we need to go back and make sure that we're at the right scale. we're good. Okay. Scales everything, guys. I did it again. I don't know why it's not. I keep doing that. Probably not seeing that I'm not attaching it to this font. Here we go. Let's see if it's all. Yep, now it's all together. Okay. So I'm going to move this over here in a corner for right now. But here's where a lot of sign designers get in trouble is they don't pay attention enough to the scale. It's one thing if you're working on one page, but if you got 13 pages with 5 different scales and so forth, it can be a really nightmare, and especially when you're handing it off to somebody else to price off of it and everything else, and the scales are wrong or whatever else. So I'm constantly checking, looking at that thing, going, okay, is my scale okay? Yep, we're good. Okay. Okay, shadow. Well, since this is at an arc, and let's put a background behind here so we all know where the shadows lie. Okay, let's set that, put it to the back. Okay, it's gonna be, I still airbrush stuff and so forth. I'm very good at mixing colors in my brain by just touching them and adding color. So we want to get this color, want to add a little bit of white to it. Oh, wrong button. A little, oops, keep doing it again, wrong button. Oops. And add some white to it. Okay. And then a little bit of, a little bit of brown. And that's where I want to be. I'm going to take that black border off of this. I'm going to duplicate it, turn one into a JPEG. Okay, 200 DPI is fine. We don't really need a lot of detail. 150 is even better. Save that. Okay, and now what we're going to do is bitmap. We're going to texturize it. So we're going to go to stone. Okay, some of these are already pre-done for me. Okay, so the backgrounds, I live in the Southwest. It's kind of got that spackled. It's kind of finished on the wall and so forth. So, but we want to bring it up to scale, roughly what it's going to be like. So that's good. I'm happy with that. It's just a background. We don't need anything too crazy here. And what we're going to do is we're going to lock this. So we're going to go underneath, grab the one that we originally started with. We don't need that anymore. We're going to lock this. Okay. So we're going to lock this object. So that way we're not sitting here moving stuff. Now we know this is on a wall. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is scoot this up a hair. Okay. I'm going to unlock this and make this a little bit taller. Okay. Move my thing here and go back. We'll lock object. Okay. Now we're going to worry about the shadow. Now since this is at an arc, there wouldn't be a shadow that just goes straight across like this, would there? That makes no sense. That shows that this would be that would be straight across with no radius whatsoever. Since we do have a radius, we need to make sure that the radius is shown here. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I do it like this as I go in here. Get that, and I get the single arc mold tool, and I'll pull it to about here. That looks like a good shadow, maybe a little bit more, and then we're done there. Okay, now this is what I do. I just one of those people that I guess it's faster when you're doing this all day long. It's faster to already have I'll show you in my second here what I'm talking about. The color black I like to use is there. It's up to you what color black you like to use. Mine's all 100s. Next thing I'm going to do is copy the same lens. Okay, and I'm going to use this quite a bit throughout the whole thing. So I'm going to take this and ask it to copy the same thing here. Okay, we're going to move this up. Okay, now technically it wouldn't go all the way to the edges that way. We got to get rid of that. See, right now we still have that little outline. Don't need an outline on that, so we're going to get rid of the outline. We're going to bring this in just a hair, okay, and we're going to put it behind this, or in front of the wall. So we're going to put this in front of the wall, okay. Now people are going to see that oh, okay, that shadow, your brain will understand that that means that this is at an arc. The lighting situation right here between the N and the B will actually tell that it's radius also because of the way it's the light hits it and so forth. So we've got a nice shadow there as far as that goes. Um, and that will help us there. I'll put this to the side here, okay? So this is looking really good. Like I said, I'll do all the finish work when I get to it as far as that goes. Um, Now, one thing I do see here, okay, and I'll grab both of them, is it needs to be a little bit taller, okay? Not that much taller. Right there. That's good. Perfect. Gives a little room on the bottom, a little room on the top, and still looks clean and so forth without it being too squinched. Okay. Now this, the flower portion of this, right now is just exactly what it is. It's just a vector flower. We need to make it look more three-dimensional. It's going to actually have push-through. It's actually going to have a background for it because it's going to be face and backlit illuminated, okay? LEDs and so forth, okay? And it's going to actually sit further back from the face of this radius. So we need to kind of give it that illusion all at one time, okay? So here's what we're going to do. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we need to make a background that surrounds a contour of this, okay? And the best way of doing that is actually using the contour outside, okay? And we want it so it touches like that. We want a little bit more than that. Of course, I don't really care when it's in feet. It makes it a little bit too hard for the math right off the bat. So we'll change. We'll change the feet to inches, and it's at 0.8. So what we're going to do is put it at 1, just a hair bigger. Okay, look how much thicker it is here. It looks really good. Perfect, okay? So I'm happy with that object. Break apart. And the reason why is because this is going to be face lit in here, and then outside where this black is, it's going to be halo lit. But we still need an interior in here of the sign. So what we're going to use this for is we're going to use this black, okay? We're going to object break curves apart, okay? Now, so some of this is not touching whatsoever. So what we're going to do is we're going to cheat. Everything's about cheating with me. So people call it differently. I call it cheating. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to weld it to that. So that way we have something like this, okay? Now I can sit there and go object break curves apart, and look, it's totally filled. Totally filled. Perfect, okay? So it's totally filled, okay? We don't need that anymore, but we just need this. So really quickly, I'll go view, simple wireframe, and just get rid of the crap we don't need from the inside, like this piece here. We don't need this, and we should be good, correct? Yes, we look good. Yeah, this needs to be cleaned up. A little bit funky looking there. It's okay. And that's what this is all about, so check this, because when you send this over to get priced or so forth, or it goes to a router or anything like that, you don't want any of these things to sneak up, and it actually makes the job look terrible because of the finished portion of it. I need to get rid of this piece here. And good. Alright, let's get back to our enhanced view. Now, with that said, this black piece, we don't need it to go all the way down to the radius piece. So I'm going to trim this all the way to the right where this is, because that's all we need. Trim the black. Oops. So we're going to trim the black. Delete this, I don't need that anymore. Okay. And that's pretty much what it's going to look like. It looks kind of odd right here, but it's okay. We're perfectly fine. That's not an issue to get rid of this. Okay. So we've got that. Okay. I know for some reason that I know this is going to be brushed aluminum, but I always put this color that's similar to it behind it, instead of having black behind it. It's just my own pet peeve, I guess. I will put a black outline on this as far as that goes. Now, this stands out, so the white flower portion stands out. So we're gonna take the extrude tool one more time. Use it to our advantage. 20 is way too much. Put it on 1. That's the smallest you can get there. And sometimes it's so funny. People are always, oh, your shadow's not right, whatever. Yeah. The funny part is I'm really good with shadows. Real good at shadows. But sometimes you got to cheat in order so the customer can understand what you're doing. As far as working in 2 dimensions there. So I'm going to do that just so they understand that this is actually raised. So I'm not sitting here so it's one-sided raised or whatever when they look at it. So I'm going to sit there, and that's good enough for me. Object, break apart. Same thing with this one. I'm going to ungroup it. Then I'm going to weld it together. Oops. There we go. Weld it together. Don't know why it did that. Yep, ungroup. Let's do it again. Oh, I broke it apart. That's my fault. And that's going to be pushed through too. So we're going to sit there and basically put the color gray we want to use in there. And I'm going to do a little bit darker there for now. And once again, we're going to show a shadow of this. So we're going to use extrude tool again, but not using it so it looks like it's going to a vanishing point. And since the shadows were going that way, to the right, because remember the sunlight. Oops. Sunlight. It's over here. Okay, the sunlight is actually on our left, so the shadows will be on our right. We're going to make this shadows just not that deep. That's a little bit too deep. Oops, wrong tool. A little bit too deep there, so let's... You gotta remember, you've gotta, from the last thing you just did, so you gotta really watch that as far as the angle and so forth, so I'm constantly checking that myself. That's good enough. Object, break apart. Okay. I'm going to ungroup that. Then I'm going to weld it. Okay. Then again, here's my black, translucent. So I'll take that. Boom. Put this to the back. And we'll check it. And everything's going to be always perfect. Okay. And then basically tell the computer that I want it to match this lens color. So now we have a 3-dimensional look. I can put my shadow back over here. Okay. This is okay if it comes off the metal because it literally is going to be off the metal. The metal it's a pan. It's a 3-inch plus pan. So technically this will actually shift, but that's details I do later on. That's the fine details. Oops. Don't need that open. So any which way. So we have something finally getting to look like something better here. Okay, now we know that this is brushed aluminum. So I'm not going to sit here and screw around trying to make brushed aluminum. Once again, I go into my file, import, and I look for brushed aluminum, which is right there. I import that. Boom. Turn it 90 degrees because we want the brush. We want horizontal brush. Take it out of its constraints. Boom. Delete that. And for scale, it's a little bit. Okay, that's fine. We still want it to be shown. So, once again, you're cheating realistically some stuff here. So that looks good to me. I always put it to the back. Take a look at it from the background. I'm good, happy with that. And I'm going to duplicate this because I might need it later on. So instead of sitting here after importing again, put it to the side. I'm going to import this and power clip it inside my metallic looking background of aluminum. Boom. Aha. That looks a lot better. A lot better. Okay? So, we've got that. Now, the one shadow we don't have is actually the shadow for the aluminum. So, now we can do it two different ways. And this is all in what you think looks good, okay? You can actually use the drop shadow tool, throw a shadow on it, play with it, get it down to about, since it's kind of close to the wall, you can either have that shadow, which is a kind of a blurred shadow than if it was really crisp. But it all depends on, like I said, how close you are. So I'm going to see what you guys think. So I'm going to leave that one for now. Break it off, okay? We're going to push it over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. I can count them. I just click to the right. That way you can I don't have to sit there and realign stuff. Or we can do this, which is duplicate that, get rid of the face out of there, make sure that we frame type. We don't need a frame type. We can call it that black down here, and we can ask it to copy the same lens as that. Okay, put that back over here. Now we can, and this is the funny part, I actually called out for this to look just like this, which is actually a smoked anodized. But it was just too much. We wanted more punch for the money, for the square footage that was allowed to be. So any which way, translucencies are your friends. Remember that. Okay, so I'm gonna drop this down to about right here, which looks correct to my brain. Put it to the back, and that's way too big for that kind of, well, it depends on time of day, of course, but I'm real picky with shadows and stuff. So you can use this, or you can use this depending on what you're trying to get across as far as the look of how far from the wall it's going to be and so forth. This is not that far from the wall, so to me, it's going to be a little bit more crisper. And once again, it all depends on time of day again, so forth. So I'm going to lighten these up. It's kind of driving me nuts that it's that dark. So that looks a lot better as far as that goes. Okay, so we're good there. Okay, so this would be the pushed acrylic portion right here. Okay, in this can, actually the way it sits and so forth. So now we can actually call it black. Okay, because it's actually going to have black perf vinyl. Now, most of the time people would sit there and try to put perfs and whatever else in this area to make it look more perforated. All you're going to get is a lot of slowing your computer down, because it's a lot of math the computer's got to sit there and figure out for all those little circles. I just call it out perf and so forth, so I just leave it black. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this. I like what I see here as far as that goes. I think I'm closer to where I want to be as far as that goes. Now, it's not a shadow on top of a shadow, so you can't technically do that. It takes certain lighting to get that kind of look. I'm not going to even go into that right now. So what I'm going to do is just get rid of that shadow. So I'm going to click the box and then click that shadow, and cut it. So I guess I didn't cut it. Hit undo again. I didn't cut it far enough. That's what I hate about the little outlines on the things. Okay, so I can cut that. Delete this. Okay, I'm happy with that. Looks good, so forth and so on. So we still have our gap between there. I'm going to open that gap up just a hair. Okay. Okay, there we go. I like that a lot better. More breathing room. More breathing room. Okay. Well, we know the sun, where the sun is coming back from now, so I think we can put that to the side. Okay. Once again, we're always check your scale. And I'm very huge about that. Sometimes I'll even just throw a horizontal vertical dimension on there, and 2 foot. I'll just keep it that way in my brain. And sometimes I'll leave it there just to make sure that if I went to another page. If I usually unlock it, I ungroup it, so that way it is no longer a functional. See, this is functional. See, it's functional. The measurement is functional and moves with the horizontal line for the sign that I clicked on for the measurements. Now, that means if I went to a different scale, a lot of people do that. Now watch. We know we are at, what scale, guys? We're at 1.5 inches equals 1 foot 0 inches, okay? Now here's what some people do all the time is, they'll go to another page. Let's pretend we go to another page. Boom. We go to another page, we change the scale, okay? Without unlocking it, we go to somewhere else. Let's go to 1:1, okay? Now, that still reads that, but if you actually function, oops. Am I in the wrong scale? Maybe I'm in the wrong scale. It is 1:1. No, hang on. Okay, give me 1 second here. Forgetting what I'm doing here. Okay, so I don't know why it's not doing it. That's actually pretty weird. It usually goes off scale. Maybe I'm 3/8. I don't know why it's not working. Any which way, majority of the time, I must have did something incorrect to make it. It's hard to do something when you're so used to doing it correct that you actually can't make it do it what you need it to do. As far as wrong, so usually I ungroup it and group it. So now it's its own units by itself. But then I'll group this with this, of course. Okay. Now I can see it's no longer part of my radius portion of the sign. It's by itself. So if I did change the scale, it's not going to affect it whatsoever. But technically, we don't need it anymore. We know what scale we're in. That's good. We are already on it, so we're good there. Okay. Which was, put it back in feet. Okay, we're good. Okay. Sorry about all the jumping around here. All right, so with the flower, where you just put the black in and so forth. So that looks really good. Like I said, the black will be perfed. This will be perfed vinyl with, once again, a 1/2 inch or 1.5 inch. Sorry, an inch white acrylic pushing through this horizontal brushed aluminum, which will be a cabinet by itself, which it will be halo lit behind, and of course the front of where all this black is will be face lit, which will be white at night because of the perf has holes. It's 50% of the same hole, 50-50 covered, 50-50 open. So during the day it looks like it's solid. During at night when the light goes through, it goes through the open holes and gives you viewed light. So it's pretty cool. Who came up with it? It's a smart idea, and it saves a lot of people from buying day-night plex and stuff of that sort, which actually has a grayish hue at night, which is not very white or bright. So it's actually smarter. Okay, so we got what we want here. Okay, now me being me, like I said, we're going to start putting some details here. I'm going to actually start taking this. I'm going to duplicate it. Get rid of the material because I don't need that anymore. Frame type, I don't need any more that frame type. I'm going to duplicate it again. Now I'm going to put some some highlights on there, so I'm going to bring it down. These highlights need to be a little bit bigger than normal, just so that they can be seen from on your design. So you can cut that. Get rid of this piece here. We don't need the outlines. Okay, so get rid of the outlines. We're going to call it white. Okay, so now it gives you a little bit more detailed of the reflection of the light hitting it. So we've got, here the light's hitting. So you got a nice coverage of dark and dark and light contrast with each other, so it gives you a more realistic look. And the whole thing behind this is I love CorelDraw, but it tends to look very cartoony if you don't put the time to do the details. And many sign designers tend to do that cartoony look. I'd rather get it as close as possible, as realistic as possible. This is not one of those real realistic ones, but it's more of my standard, knockout work, which has a lot more detail than most people's do. So now it's got that. We don't need to do the dark. Some people will sit here and do the dark aspect of what I just did. It's not necessary at all. You just, as long as you have the light highlights, is good. And what I start doing is like I said, we're gonna start putting some highlights into some of this stuff here, and we'll go from there. So file, back to my scrapbook area, and it's called dot. And dot, you can't see, just says that word. Bring it in, and all it is a JPEG circle. And I've had this thing for 11 years. I've never changed it. I mean, I modify it for each job. So for this, I like to find the hot spots. Okay, that's way too big. Make it nice and small. And just these little added little features. Yeah, you don't see it very. They're just very faint, but they're added to the professionalism of what you're doing. And I never do more than 3. I think if you do over more than that, it just gets a little bit too busy. Now, I'm the kind of guy that likes to do this, which actually looks more real, and then squish this in a little bit, and change the angle so it matches the angle, or close to it, and then put it right on top of it. So it has a nice little hot spot right there, okay? Sometimes you can dim that down a little bit by using the transparency tool and so forth, okay? So I'm happy with that. Well, somewhat happy with it. I think the angle is a little bit questionable, and the size was definitely too big. So I guess I wasn't happy as I thought. So here we go, getting closer. So what I want is just a little bit of a bow showing right here, and then the hot spot wherever. So that way it kind of gives you a little bit, and those are just added features that help your design pop, and the customer really realize that he's getting something that, it's got some quality involved. And that's one thing as far as sign designers. Some sign designers don't show enough quality in their design, and wonder why, they're not getting certain things, or salespeople are not using them the way they would like to be used, because they're not using their skill set to the best that they can use it. Some people design to a certain point and stop. I'm a strong believer that the point you stop, then relook at it, and then see if you can detail it out a little bit more. And then there is a part where you stop, but you need to know that most sign designers stop at a certain point and think that's good enough. And I'm like, well, it is if you're doing production drawings. It doesn't need to be a beautiful picture, but if you're trying to sell a $7,000 sign or more, which I've done, $1 million signs and multi-$100,000 signs, designs, you want it to look as close as possible to what the customer is going to get, so that the salesperson has less work to do. I mean, the sign, like a famous friend of mine, Randy Rohrbaugh, worked at Young Electric Sign Company. One of my closest friends there, actually. He taught me a lot about. He's a salesperson. He taught me a lot about selling signs and how it helps me as a designer be better at what I do. And he goes, Jim, if I have to talk over your design, he says, I'm not going to win the contract. But if I can take that design and put it on the table and not say a word, the first person that speaks, well, that's pretty much what it boils down to. So, and that's always resonated with me since his passing and so forth. Is that, two things. Sign design and a lot of design, it's all about listening. It's not even about skill. It's about listening. The better you listen, the better your sign and revisions will be. So I take that into heart. And here at Walton Creative Studios, it's really important that we listen really well to produce reproduce because majority of stuff I do is within 3 revisions we're done. It's that simple. Sometimes less than that, sometimes more than that, depending on I don't know what you want to say, depending on the customer and how finicky and so forth the customer is going to be. Usually they're being finicky about not necessarily colors, but as far as, wow, that's a beautiful sign, but that's going to cost me an arm and a leg. When I hear that, I know I've done my job because it's solely detailed so well and more realistic than your typical sign layout. So, all right, let's get back at it here. So on this one, I'm only going to show, I'm actually going to show another one here, and the only reason why is because I work in 3D a lot, so I tend to remember how lighting works really well and so forth. So I tend to like these little odd little areas where you wouldn't think it would shine, but it actually will. Like I said, it's just actually, let's use a circle because that's going to be a better one. Duplicate that, move it down here, and let's give it a little bit of a pull. Change the angle a little bit. There we go. Of course, we don't want it on the black. We don't want it showing on top of there, so. It could be very, very just that alone right there. It's just small little details, and I mean that's a small detail. You could do several different things. You could add to it, which would make it seem a little bit brighter, but we just keep it normal. And that's just right there. Actually, pull it up a little bit closer to the darker area to give it more that the difference between the two. Turn it a little bit, and that's good. I'm happy with that. And the reason it's this is super bright, but all of a sudden it's just gray, and all of a sudden you got this little hot spot. All small, minute, tiny stuff, you know, as far as it goes. All right, so let's take a look at where we're at. So we've got a nice shadow to show the radius of this cabinet here. We've got our brushed aluminum, which is nice because it shows the grain work, you know, really nicely. I think I've had that piece for same thing about 11 years or so. Keep using the same stuff, stuff you like, you tend to keep using, you know, and so forth. The flower actually sits back 3 feet behind the radius cabinet, so it's got a nice little dimensional portion to this. Usually I'll bring this in, and I might show it here. If so I usually bring this in SketchUp and actually do a 3D model and so forth, which I've done this before since I've already done the layout for this before. But any which way. So this is what we have. I'm happy with what we're seeing right now. Since we're still playing with highlights, what we want to do is actually take this, and I want to just turn it a little bit because I already know where and stretch it, okay, and put it right there, okay, stretch it a little bit more as far as that goes, and put it right in the center, okay. We want 2 of those. Put it at the bottom, okay. Okay, so we got 2 of those, and what we're going to do is we're going to lighten those up a little bit. Yeah, like that. We don't want it too bright. It's a little bit too bright as far as it goes. The next thing you could do is if I was really getting to high detail stuff, I'd actually put it behind. Oops, I forgot. Hang on one second. I forgot these are grouped, so it can't go behind. You got to ungroup it to go behind the blue. So behind the blue. And then I actually would normally, well, I'm not going to do this, I'm just showing you so you understand, is hit add, And see how that it shows up just a hair. See how it shows up just a hair underneath that color? Well, you hit add, you can bring it so it stands out a little bit more, stuff like that. But that's not what we're doing here. I'm just showing you ideas. Let's back it up. So I'm happy with that as far as that goes. Okay. That looks really good. Looks really good. This side here, and once again, I'm going to go right underneath it. Okay, so I know, see, I'm working with the silver here, my fountain fill with my brushed aluminum, let's call it. And we could lighten this up a little bit since it does get the angle of light a little bit more. So we can do something more like that. Maybe a little bit darker. And you gotta play with it, see what you like. There. So that still shows that radius. Okay. Or you can go right back to where you were. So, yeah, I like it better. So it's just a matter of playing with light and so forth. Since I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to detail this out to where I really want it to shine for the customer and so forth. So, okay, and that's the other thing too. Is your shadow work too dark? And there is such thing as too dark, or too light, so you want to make sure. Hang on, I like to use my 100. You can sit there and decide if it's too dark, too light. That's too dark. It's realistic, but it's to get the point across. Sometimes you gotta go lighter. So, to me, that is perfect. Okay. Now, you're probably wondering, hey, why did you do the ones up here? Well, there's a reason behind it. If I make that too dark, then it's gonna fight with the actual detail for the flower that it's already black. So we can leave that alone any which way. Okay. So it's mainly stuff that's hitting the wall that we want to contrast with as much as possible to give it that kind of that feel and look as far as that goes. Okay, so we look good. I like this. It looks good. It's showing the radius like we were talking about. Hang on a second. Yeah, that looks good. I like it a lot, And, oops, we could technically take off the outlines, of the black and so forth to give it a more realistic look, not so cartoony. And that's an option that it's up to you as far as the designer and so forth. What makes you feel more comfortable and so forth with as far as that goes. Okay, so that's up to you as far as that goes. And then some people are more detailed. Like I said, this is not a super detailed drawing that I would normally do. It's a standard drawing. Because usually, since none of these are going to be somewhat translucent, I'd make them translucent, but it's not necessary. The callouts will dictate all that, and this will actually, the customer will understand what's going on with this, all day long, as far as that goes. So this will be represent, because the wall is almost the same, this color that's going to be going up on and so forth. And now we're going to do the fun part, which a lot of people don't do. Let's unlock this. What we're going to do is going to copy this. And there's many ways you can copy, do a whole page, whatever. I just do it my way. So copy, insert page. Okay. Put this, oops. So we're duplicated. So we got page 2 and page 3. Okay. Now, since I'm happy with what we've got for daytime, I'm going to put my time into building the nighttime view. Okay. Nighttime view can be a real pisser if you don't know what you're doing. Take a look at some signs at night and so forth to give you an idea. Okay. Everything we're going to do is we're going to put a mask on everything. Okay. So to give it that dark look of what it would look like at night and so forth. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is actually the view of this at night of the background. So I'm going to put that to the back. Then I'm going to put it to right here. Get rid of the outline. Okay, and once again, I'm going to use that translucent tool, but I'm going to change the darkness of it to be a little considerably darker. So I'm going to copy the lens. Okay, that looks good, but it's not dark enough for, you know, there's always ambient light, so you got to think about that, but there's not that much ambient light, so we're going to want to make this a little bit darker, even darker than that, and that looks good right there. So you can actually maintain natural color. Some people just call it black, and I'm like, dude, not all places are going to be black. It's going to actually still have shadows and stuff like that, even though, you know, at night. So it all depends on what time of night it is and so forth, and where you live. So, all right. So let's take this one. Okay. And you remember that's a translucent as it is. We're going to call it that black. Okay. But the thing is, we've got to change it from color to subtract. Okay. Now, our subtract. Hang on a second. Let's take some time and some playing with. Okay. So subtract. Okay. You're going to see a little bit of the blue at night, not a lot, depending on the you know, the ambient light and so forth, but you tend to see part of the sign, you know, 'cause light gives off from the sign and other ambient light that's around it. So for right now, that looks okay. I'm happy with it for right now. We're going to get rid of these hot spots. Remember where you put them. They should stand out. Get rid of the light detail. It's not necessary. And the silver, we're going to duplicate that. Get rid of the power clip. Sorry about that. Okay, we're gonna get rid of the frame. None. Okay, we're gonna be back to that same black. We're gonna tell it to please copy the same lens as we've got here. Okay, so it's got this black. Okay, nice black. Real quick, since I got this, we need there right there, which is that part of the three-part dimensional of the push through. We want to make sure that that is no longer a white color. It can be, but for the night view, it's confusing if you left it there, even though we know that technically it'd be white. But it's very confusing to the customer to sit there and look at it and go, well, what's that light part? Now, during the day, it's a different story because you can explain to them that, you know, it's dimensional. This is, you know, that's what it push through and so forth because of the angle. But at nighttime, you can't. You can tell them that, but it's hard to explain it. So what I do is I just delete it. Okay, so it looks just like that. So yeah, it's a little bit flatter. You definitely need to bring this darkness up. So I want to copy. Oops, sorry about that. I'm working real slow. I usually work real fast. All right, that's way too dark. So I'm gonna take that and back that down. So back it up actually. So there, maybe there. That looks good. I'm happy with that. Let's zoom out. Okay, let's get rid of this because that's been bugging me for a while here. Let's put that way to the side. If it's been bugging you, then I understand. Let's pull this down. Bring your measurements up. Let's make sure we're all, you know, like I said, we didn't change anything, but it's a good habit to get into is constantly checking your scale. Make sure that it's where it's supposed to be. I'm going to put that on the front layer. Call it white so we can see it. Okay. All right, so this looks really good. Okay, well that shadow needs to go because this is halo and facelit. Okay, so the shadow needs to go. Now here's the cool part with that not day night, with that 3M perforated vinyl. The neat thing is that this looks like white at night because of the way it shines through the light. Now this can be a little bit darker, so we can sit there and play with that, get a little bit darker. Neat part is you can still see some of the brushed aluminum, which is really, really cool. I love that. Okay, so we've got that. Let's play with this a little bit more. As far as the translucency and so forth. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to cheat a little bit because of the time of night and so forth. We're going to get down to our fountain fill, which is that brushed aluminum color, and we're going to cheat some of those angles, some of those colors, so they're not so dark. So we're going to do that. Get back to our grays. That's that gray there. That gray over here. That's fine. Put this to the top. Okay, it's still pretty dark. And there. That looks a little bit more. We're getting there without going. You still want to be able to see the blue. You don't want to see it jet black like we were before. You want to see a little bit of the blue, so it kind of gives you, even a super dark blue, that's what you want. You don't want it so it's just blue, okay? So, alright, so then again, this changes the whole dynamics here as far as this goes. So once again, that shadow we would technically see it from the angle, whatever else, but from the customer's aspect, we got to get rid of the shadow, because there wouldn't be a shadow as push through, because it's actually what acrylic would be lit. So if we were to do this and kept that there and add the white in there, some people would keep it that way, and that's fine for them. Me personally, I do one or two things. I either delete it and keep it nice and clean, or I'll put a nice lighter, just a hair, or just a hair lighter grayish, like that. So there is a difference between the white and that as far as the push through. Okay, you can do that, and that looks fine. That's all up to the designer to figure that all out. Okay, so so far we got a nice night view. Okay, but it's not doing what it's supposed to do, which is this is lit now as far as that goes with the push through on the cabinet. This is nice, but this actually has a halo, because it actually stands off the wall a little bit as far as that goes. So it has a little bit of a halo on that, and of course the flowers. So let's work with this one first. So I'm going to throw a shadow on there. I always go to normal. Start. But we need to add, because we want to make this thing as bright as possible. And I'll explain that to you first in a second here, actually. Let's go to normal so you can understand this. It's going to be white. Okay, so it's white right now. Okay. We want it to be on the outside, so it gives it nice. Okay. We want it so that it's like that. Okay. We want to bring up the value. Oof, yeah, so that's a little bit more punch. It's going to bleed more than that on the outside. So that's good. It washes on the wall real nicely. So that looks good. I'm happy with that. Object, let's break it apart. Let's put this white right onto the wall. Now it's starting to look like something. Okay, this shadow. That shadow will not be there. Boom. So it kind of goes away. Okay. There we go. We're going to darken this up a little bit. As you go along, you'll see where you need to darken up and play with your background colors as far as darkness and so forth. So there, we're good. We can still, it's not black. It's so much more like a bronze, dark bronze kind of a thing. So that's good. We're happy with that. So I'm happy with how that looks. Now we need to do the same thing here, where I'll start out right off with add. Oh, I didn't show you that. Never mind. Let me show you that in a second. All right, so we'll just start off in normal. Oh, it's supposed to be blue. I'll change the color blue in a second here. We'll just use this for now. Okay, so blue outside. Yeah, looks good. Bring up the intensity. where so it's not that much bleed on the wall. That looks good. A little bit more blue. I'm happy with that. Okay, now let's see here. We're gonna break it apart. Object, break it apart. Okay. So now we're gonna take this and we're gonna tell it to add stuff. We're here in normal. Normal's okay, but when you're working with, if you want to make it a little more neon, you hit add. See how much brighter it gets? Okay. I'm gonna take that back to normal. Normal. Add. Okay. Go back to normal. Okay, we'll put this to front so that way it's not bright. So that's not the color blue I want to use though. So that's where this gets a little bit more. Give me a second here. Okay. Now let's just play with that. Now let's hit add. Okay, that's a lot better blue. Okay, like that a lot. And sometimes you can duplicate it to get more shine. And that's what I normally do is usually have one color of the actual blue, and then I duplicate it to give it more of what it realistically has, that flare kind of feel to it. On top of that, the white, it's just going to be a subtle little thing of white. It's not going to be anything too bright. It's not meant to be. We don't want it to overpower the font and stuff. As far as this, it's the flower we want as much. This has a lot thicker strokes on it, so it's gonna be hard to out-dominate the blue in the background. So, but these are just thin stroked, so we didn't want that to over-dominate as far as that goes. And that's what you're looking for, looking at as a nighttime view. See, this way it kind of gives the customer an idea of what it's going to look at nighttime and so forth. And this doesn't have to be, you can change your colors, orange. You can change it to that blue, whatever, and so forth. So yeah, let's leave that as blue, and let's change this top version. Let's get rid of the doubled here. And what I originally called this out was actually like a magenta, because I loved the bite it had on the magenta. And what we actually did was we took this, put it on top. Okay, and that looked really, really good. I mean, I love that magenta. And once again, if you never use the tools over in, the merge of tools here between, add, overlays, all this other stuff, it's a godsend, especially when you're playing with light, with colors and stuff like that. Color is one of my favorite. You won't barely see it on here, but technically what I normally would do is, which I'm going to do next, is to show you. So this is normal. Yeah, it's bright, but it's not like night bright, where add gives you that more night bright kind of feel to it, okay? So we've got that night bright kind of feel to it, okay? Which is good. So that looks really good. I'm happy with that. What I do, one more thing, is I actually do this, do another type of shadow using a different gradient. Now, speaking of these colors, when you start using a lot of these colors are in this toolbox right here, this little drop down, the majority of the time when you save them, you have to export them as a PNG. If you don't, it takes away or screws up your whole dynamics of what the color actually function works. And I learned that the hard way years and years ago. I said, "Oh, this looks really cool." Saved it as not even JPEG, sent it as a PDF, and the customer's like, "Why is there so black behind?" So wherever the color was supposed to be, let's say like that magenta color is, it was a black halo because it didn't save the structure of how this color works. So it really, really was not smart. So I remember when I learned it was saving it as a PNG. So what I had to do was I saved these files saved each page as a PNG, brought it back in, then send it as a PDF. So that way it kept the color profiles of the color the way it's supposed to be. So it has a nice. See, now it has a really nice bleed onto the background, just like the real sign would actually have. Okay, now I'm going to do one more thing, which is actually give it a little bit more realistic, which is actually a little bit more, is to give it another shadow, put it on normal again. I always start at normal, just so I know from what I'm seeing outside. Okay, and I'm going to change the color to magenta. Okay, now we're going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay, see that little blur right there? That's what we're looking for. Okay, so then we actually hit add. Okay, as far as that goes. Alright, I'm going to sit there and then go object, break apart. Okay, now that actually has to go to the back. It's not to be in the front, it's got to be in the back. So, oops. Sometimes you can overdo it really quickly, so that's a nice thing. You get to sit there and work this stuff out. Okay, got that. Add. The other thing is, and you can play with it. Like I said, color. You can't see it. At least not with that dark background. Definitely not subtract. Subtract makes it darker. So you gotta sit there and play with it. Whatever, I'm just showing you guys these different things so you can kind of get an understanding. But let's get back to add. Okay. Uh, oops. I mean, wrong tool. Okay. So it just has a little bit of that extra little bit of that magenta washing onto the wall, which looks more. See, that looks gives you the hot spot and the light spots, and still more realistic as far as that goes. Okay. You can do that with the blue also, but knowing that this color here is actually just not to have as much punch as the flower, so you don't need to necessarily go too crazy with it. What I normally do is two things: is if that's good enough, or I just duplicate it. But like I said, I don't need to, so let's get rid of it. So that's good. The only problem I don't like is it's just not hitting the blue I'm looking for. And we just play with it. Continue to keep playing with it. Yeah, I'm happy with that, I guess. That looks good. It gets the point across, like I said. So now you can see how it works against the background, blends into the background. And you'd be honest, not honest, you'd be amazed that when you do a really high detail layout for a sign and stuff like that, customers will actually sit there and blow it up and just go, "Oh my God, that looks so real," or whatever they say to a point. And that I don't worry about. That's just a little bit of shadow. You don't really see that as much, but and they go, "Oh, that looks like the real background. This looks like this." So they kind of get not kind of, they actually get a better view of what their sign's going to look like when you get that detailed. Like I said, now this is what I consider half detailed. It's good enough for this client. It's good enough for to get this point across because of what it is. You see what I'm saying? As far as that goes. Um, so we got a night view. We go back to our day view. Okay. Night view. Back that out a little bit. Okay. So the night view, day view, night view, day view. It's like somebody switching the light off and on. On, off, on, off. Okay, the next thing I do is I'm happy with this. Usually I don't put any measurements on the page for the detail page, one that makes it look beautiful and whatever else. Now, what I will do really quickly is usually I bring in, I have to find it here real quick here, is a 3D model of the idea, so that way it kind of gives the customer an understanding. So what I'll do is I'll go file. I already had these built, so give me a second here. Desktop, out. And I just gotta find it for a second here. Photos. photos. I think it's under photos. Okay, so there's the side view, but that's through the mesh material. Now, here's a good one to give you an idea from. There's been a couple different revisions and so forth, but it kind of gives you an idea. You could bring this in. It's actually a mesh version with a different logo on the background and stuff like this. But the nice thing is it gives you the 3D model with the measurements and stuff like that. If you're trying to sell this job to your customer and be very detailed, you know, because then details everything. This presentation piece will be a killer when it's done. But since this doesn't match what we're doing, we won't put that in there, of course, you know what I'm saying. So what I will do, though, is I will find the original one and see if I do have it. Let's see here. See if I have the 3D model version of it. Let's see here. Okay, why is my computer not working here? It's just being very slow. Which is, I have an Alienware computer. Love this thing. It's usually a beast, but it's time to upgrade some stuff on it. Love these things because you can actually upgrade them. They're not like most laptops you buy them and you're screwed after a while. So as far as this goes, okay. So here's a version of it where it had just very simplistic, you know, that kind of thing. Showed a 3D version of that on the side. You know, here's the one that I was saying before. Real nice idea, but it's just a little bit too punchy for them as far as that goes. But very, very professional, very beautiful. Here's a hot spot, like I was saying, hot spots on there, and so forth. And of course, they changed from purple to blue. And here's a 3D model where it shows the side aspect, which is really, really cool and so forth. Same thing up here. That's one I showed you on the other page. This is the night view of that version and so forth, which I really liked. It has a really unique look to it as far as that goes. Smaller version of it. Any which way. What we'll do is grab two things. We'll grab this whole thing here, bring it into our drawing. Okay, so we're going to create a third page. Insert page. Power Club. Now, the neat thing is, this is not to scale, but it's to scale, but it's not to a actual scale. So, hang on, we're centering the page. So, we can take our sign. This is the one that I originally, simplistic one that we were looking at, where they changed from the perf to non-perf. So what we'll do is we'll actually grab this version, group it, copy it, bring it over, really, really big. I know this is the right size for this. There's I know stuff in the background there. Delete that real quick. I'm going to copy that, paste it to get as close as possible. Okay, put that in front of it. And get rid of the old one. Okay. And it kind of gives you an idea. The only thing I would change is the shadowing. Our shadowing is going to the right, whereas you can see this street light right here. Actually, it means that the shadowing is actually coming from the right to the left. And mine's going from the left to the right. So that's the only change I would actually have to do, which is actually, doesn't take time to do it. I mean, a lot of time to do it and so forth, but I'm just showing you to the other portion of my job, especially sign designers, is showing it on the actual elevation. and then actually doing the measurements and so forth. But since this is called relative scale, I'm not doing any measurements for it. All right, let's get back to, that's our night shot. Let's get back to our daytime. And like I said before, I usually don't, on the presentation piece, don't put any measurements on there, because what happens is it clutters it up. So what I do again is open another page. Oops. Layout, insert another page right behind it, and import what we just, oops, forgot what we import. With our scale, copy and paste that one in. Okay. Now, here's where, let me give my computer a second to think here. Okay, so here's where adding outlines is a really good thing. Okay. Because I'm not going to need the shadows and all the other stuff necessarily. Depends on who you are and how, who the customer is, and as far as that goes. So what I'm going to do right now is put the outlines where they need to be. Let's ungroup everything. Okay. Not on that piece, one behind it, black outline. Just so it stands out more against the background, as far as that goes. And sometimes you can thicken up the outlines a little bit. Oops. Okay. From hairline to the next thickness as far as that down the scale. And then just copy that. Oops. Wrong. Oops. I even outline the letters. It's not necessary, but it is what it is. Okay, so it gives it a little bit more detailed look. Got a little more cartoonish look, as I call it. But now we can actually start, once again, 1 1/2 scale. Check our scale. We're good. Yep. And start putting some details to this. Okay. Get rid of that silly leader area thing here. I don't like when people do that. Get rid of it. Delete it. There's no need for it. It looks kind of silly when it's just sitting there hanging by itself. Okay. Group. Delete. Okay. And the thing behind this too is to keep it really clean so it doesn't look cluttered. I know I work in SolidWorks too, and I know when I'm detailing a design that sometimes the measurements, well, they get all over the place, and you're just cluttered with stuff as far as that goes. You know what I'm saying? So, oops. So sometimes you just need to, oops, line it up so it looks nice and clean and so forth. Kind of clicked on my scale, gone. See, my scale's missing right here. Put it right back so that way I can pull lines and so forth. Okay, so I'm keeping the shadows just so the customer can see it. Usually on something like this, I don't even put any color to it. It's one color, and I just do call outs and so forth. We're not going to get to that part. We're just going to actually just get to the point where we're showing the detail of the sign so they know what the measurements are and can somewhat visualize in their head how big this thing is going to be, because it is to scale. We're not just drawing it and then throwing a bunch of numbers on there. That's not the scale. That won't help anybody. That's, if anything, that's going to make anything worse. A lot more worse. A lot worse. So this way they'll know if the letter height is, well, that's too small. I need it, or I need it bigger than that, and we'll make the difference. Because I'm pretty sure there will be a revision usually on stuff like this. So I'm going to put this in the shadow. So in the shadow, so it's white, so at least it stands out. Okay. Okay. Get rid of that highlight. Don't really need it. And oops. Okay. And I don't like long leaders off my my measurement. Some people would make this all the way to the left, and then I just think it's too much. So I usually do this and line it up. It looks a lot cleaner. You pretty much know what it is. If you don't, then if I have trouble understanding what it is, I actually will do this instead. Oops. Use a Bezier tool, make a straight line, get rid of the arrows, and find a dotted line you like. I'm going to put a dotted line here. I'm going to thicken up the stroke by, say, 8. Scale. And so nice and thick. Oops. Okay. Put it to the top of this. And then what I'll do is scoot this over. And then go like that. That's professional. That's what it should be done. Not always having to have these bunch of thick lines all over and making it clutter. Excuse me. Okay, so that's the other way of doing it, which is perfectly fine. And of course, you can do the same thing on the duplicate bottom, so people understand where those leader lines are going and so forth. Okay. So the next one would be, of course, the width. And I always check that to make sure that this is not wider than this or whatever. And then see that you can get away with. I just personally don't care for it. It's a personal preference. I don't like those long leaders. It just drives me nuts. I'd rather be looking at a pretty picture as far as that goes. Then you know, guys that do the detail work as far as estimating and all that stuff, they want everything with the leader lines and all that stuff. So I'll do it that way, so you can see both ends. 90 left. There. That looks good. The dotted lines don't bug me because it's not a solid line, so it doesn't bug me. So I'm used to doing that. It's not an issue usually. I usually always pull those in as a template portion. It helps speed up my process any which way. So you got that. You can be a lot more detailed as far as your measurements and so forth in this aspect. But for a not rough estimate, for a typical estimate. Oops, sorry about that. For typical estimation, the measurements here are going to be more than sufficient as far as that goes. We'll do the job for what they need it to do. Usually now it's there and do arrows, and this is brushed aluminum, this is perf material, this is plex, this is 1-inch acrylic, or whatever the callouts are going to be and so forth. But that is pretty much how we do it. So that was a run through on how I built this sign. And this sign, of course, is a little bit different than what we finished off with, but you still get the idea of what it is, and the measurements are a little bit different, but that's okay. Like I said, we're just going through the walkthrough of what it actually is. And this is not highly detailed either, just gives an idea, letting the customer know what the materials are and so forth. Mostly for the estimating more than anything else. So this is the sign we built. It looks good. I'm happy with it. This is more of the detailed portion of us finishing up and so forth. And this would normally get my Walton the Creative Studio approval, and then I would actually structure it to get ready for sending out as a PDF. I lock all my PDFs. You gotta remember, some people will stiff you, so you gotta be real careful as far as, you know, work and so forth. So I lock all my PDFs. They're view only until everything's paid for. So just remember that. Not trying to be mean or rude or anything like that, but we do have people that tend to want free stuff for free, for doing stuff for free. So, and I'm not here for doing that. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you understand anything. If you have any questions, you can always hit me up right here on YouTube. Or you can email me at waltoncreativestudios2@gmail.com. So appreciate it. Thank you very much. Bye.